Broncos quarterback Bo Nix is the next Jalen Hurts.
And I'm dying to know how you came to that conclusion.
We'll discuss that and more on this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Kate Madjuk. You can follow her on Twitter at Kate Madjuk. On today's show, we're breaking down this awesome Thursday night football game between the Denver Broncos and New Orleans Saints. Not really an awesome game, but Kate and I suffered through it to give you the best insights from this game. Kate, I want to talk about Bo Nix. 16 of 26, 164 yards. Did have a QBR of 83.4, but that's for a different topic because I hate QBR. Ran for 75 yards. Coming out of this game, I'm actually very encouraged about Bo Nix. I know there were some bad misses, including one where he made an impossible throw, putting the ball between two wide open defenders. I don't know how he did it, but he dropped the ball directly between the two of them. But I'm actually kind of encouraged by what I've seen from Bo Nix through the first 7 games of the season.
All right. I do want to go back to, let's time travel a little bit. Let's go back to February when we first started scouting out this 2024 draft class. Of course, we covered Bo Nix. Quarterback out of Oregon, has been very productive over the past 2 seasons in his final 2 years of college. Was one of the most proficient passers, back-to-back seasons with a 70+% completion percentage. Final year, 4,500 passing yards, 45 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He produced some stuff at Oregon, right? And coming out, his kind of calling card, I thought he was more of a game manager, but does have some low-key wheels. In his first season in Oregon, the second to last season he played, he had 3 seasons at Auburn before that, had 510 rushing yards for 14 touchdowns on the ground. Mm-hmm. And you said at that time he's reminiscent of Jalen Hurts. So tell me how that's going for you.
I mean, I think Bo Nix looks a lot like what Jalen Hurts did as a rookie in Philadelphia, where the accuracy is kind of all over the place. Now, the Broncos they give him a lot of layup throws that I don't think the Eagles did with Jalen Hurts maybe early on, but a lot of layup throws to boost up his completion percentage. But you're seeing the rushing upside. Here, the last 2 games, he has 136 rushing yards on 16 carries. He's athletic. He makes people miss in the pocket. He moves around really well. The thing with Bo Nix is, will the Broncos ever get the skill players in the offensive line like Philadelphia did to make it where he's producing at a top 5, top 10 dynasty quarterback level? I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to be awfully hard, Kate, for them to have A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, and a top 3 offensive line in the league. But I think you do see signs of Bo Nix becoming that type of player. And I'm not a big Bo Nix fan, but I can squint and see, this does remind me a lot of what Jalen Hurts looked like in his rookie season.
Well, I mean, what's pretty impressive in general, right now, not the best showing on Thursday Night Football, but, before that, but the 2 games before that, 23 fantasy points, 21 fantasy points. And a big part of that was because he was productive on the ground. I think it's kind of easy to see the potential pathway there for some fantasy upside, even if there is a mismatch and he's not the best quarterback in the league. There is a pathway where he is a high-end QB2 any given week, just because of that rushing upside, even in games where the passing just doesn't come to fruition. Because you got to look at this group of skill position players around him. not much there.
So we should also mention, like, Denver's played some pretty good defenses to start the season, including the Steelers, the Jets. I think the Chargers have a very good defense. So that the numbers are suppressed, and you don't expect huge numbers for a quarterback that's being drafted, in the teens. But we should also mention, like, his weapons are pretty poor, right? Compared to like what Jaden Daniels has and what Caleb Williams has. When your number one receiver, like yesterday, was Troy Franklin, Cortland Sutton didn't even have a catch. Troy Franklin's a rookie 4th-round receiver. I got to assume that Denver over the next couple of years is going to try to load him up with weapons, whether it's in the draft, whether it's in free agency. Sean Payton likes to spend money. That's why the Saints cap situation is where it's at right now. I got to believe the situation is going to get better. It's just, can Bo Nix continue to improve? Again, I'm not the biggest Bo Nix fan. I'm not projecting a Jalen Hurts type of career, but as a prospect and as a player, I think they are similar.
I mean, yeah, definitely got to enjoy that athleticism. And to really become Jalen Hurts, we have to see that progression as a passer. You mentioned some of the layup throws, like some of these just easy slants over the middle where
Yep.
they, can get their guys open pretty quickly, get the ball out of his hands, get him in rhythm. Those are all great to see. Now, accuracy has been kind of lacking to this point. 5th highest uncatchable, inaccurate throw rate here through the first 7 weeks of the season now among all quarterbacks with 25 plus pass attempts. They've got to get him, I think, some more of those layup throws. And yes, if he's going to hold long-term value in Dynasty, we really need to see the cast of weapons improve. Now, you are right. The Saints are in a bit of a pickle right now because of some certain financial decisions they've made, and perhaps we see the Broncos in a similar position in the next couple of years. But you have to imagine that if that's the case, they're probably going to be putting Bo Nix in a decent situation. So, what do you make of Bo Nix's dynasty value right now? Because as we said, could be like this high-end QB2 any given week just based on the rushing upside. Most recent Dynasty ADP has him at QB20. How does that feel for you?
It feels about right. I don't think I could put him ahead of some of the names going, like Geno Smith, Trevor Lawrence, Baker. Like, he should be below all those guys. But if we're comparing him to like JJ McCarthy, who was drafted, I believe, 1 or 2 spots ahead of Bo Nix, I do think I would rather have Nix right now because, first of all, he's healthy. And I wonder what that situation in Minnesota is going to look like if Sam Darnold continues to play really well. I mean, do you think it's a lock that JJ McCarthy is the week 1 starter next year?
I think it's tricky because they were already kind of in this development plan for JJ McCarthy and wanted to see him hit these milestones. And then you have a season-ending knee injury. So
yeah, and the weapons are so much better. Like, it couldn't
yes.
be further different. So that's one of the things that McCarthy does have in his advantage, right? Like, playing with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson for the entirety of your rookie deal is going to be nice. But when is he going to get on the field?
I mean, that's a fair question. Other players that I want to quickly mention, Javonte Williams had a pretty solid game on the ground. He's been pretty ineffective throughout the entire season. I've been kind of watching him and thinking maybe this is the end of Javonte Williams. And you have Audric Estime coming back, and they have a bunch of other players that they got involved. But 88 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, had a long run of 20. That was his longest run to this point in the year. Caught all 3 of his targets. Like, had a really solid day. And unfortunately on many players' benches. But are you buying into this Javonte Williams game as the real Javonte Williams?
He did look explosive. I thought this was the best he looked physically in a while. But no, I mean, this is the final year of his deal. It's clear that they still like Jaleel McLaughlin. Our guy Audric Estime even got a little bit of run last night before he fumbled. No, I think it's cool to see Javonte look healthier again, but I'm not buying him at all in dynasty leagues. Not at all.
Fair. Is this the time to sell?
Do you think he's worth selling, or do you think you just hold him out and use them up this year and then kind of move on.
Yeah, if you're a contender, a good guy to hold on to, Audric
I
Estime
just don't think
definitely
you're going
going
to
to
get much
have
in a
to
trade.
secure the fumbling problem, a
Yeah.
fumble in 2 of 3 games now. But I mean, you got to look at that yards per carry right now, 6.2 yards per carry. And he just looks like the tough runner we saw coming out of Notre Dame. So, like, I'm really excited about Audric Estime. Again, just has to work on this fumbling problem. But I think from a on the field perspective, and I'm not trying to limit ball security, but like, I love the prospect of Audric Estime in this offense long term, especially this being the last
Yep.
year of Williams' deal.
All right, okay, let's switch over to the Saints side of things because we have to.
Do we have to?
Yeah, other than that, pretty bleak over there in New Orleans. Let's talk about Kendre Miller, who finally got on the field. Should you be encouraged by his play? We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Arena Club. For most of us that like collecting cards, including myself, I absolutely love collecting cards. There's a nice little Bo Nix card. The idea of spending $2,000 or more on a CJ Stroud rookie card or a Lamar Jackson rookie card just isn't in the cards. I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop. But thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of the retail price. Every card that I just listed was hit from a Arena Club slab pack drop just last week. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and a clear hit rate for each one. I love Arena Club. I just hit a Jahmyr Gibbs rookie card in a slab pack. It's absolutely fantastic. So whether you're buying, selling, or trading, or even just displaying, Arena Club is the card collecting platform that you have to check out right now. Arena Club slab packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. After your pulls are revealed, they'll immediately be placed in your showroom for safekeeping, or you can sell them, or you can trade them, or whatever you want to do. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL. That is arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL. Use promo code LockedOnNFL for 10% off your first purchase. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. Kate actually had a really nice winning lineup on Thursday Night Football. She was texting me through the night, worried about her lineup. So go check it out right now. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in place even if one of your players gets injured. For example, I had Chris Olave in my lineup in week 6. He left the game early with a concussion. My lineup stays in place thanks to PrizePicks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Go download the PrizePicks app today. Use promo code LockedOnNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We are breaking down this Thursday night football game, which was pretty easily the worst one of the season so far. But Kate, let's talk about the Saints side of things. Just really quickly, Spencer Rattler, 25 of 35 for 172 yards. Not great. 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Nobody did much of anything in the receiving game. Cedric Wilson caught a late touchdown to help lead the Saints in receiving yards. But Kendre Miller led the Saints in rushing yards, 6 carries for 36 yards. Also caught 2 passes for 1 yard. But is now the time to buy Kendre Miller?
I think so. And maybe I have take lock, maybe, because I was a big fan of Kendre Miller coming out of TCU. Now, the big issue has been health, and Dennis Allen has not held back about what a problem his health has been. He has been scathing when it comes to talking about Kendre Miller. Every time he says Kendre Miller, my ears bleed because I know it's going to be something absolutely terrible. But what we saw in his first game returning from an injury was some really solid rushing, right? Like, again, didn't get a ton of run, only had 6 carries, but I thought he looked like one of the best running backs on the field last night. 67% missed forced tackle rate. That is 4 missed forced tackles on just 6 runs. Average 6 yards per attempt. Like, I just thought he looked solid. And I think you look at the Saints cap situation, which we brought up in our last segment, they have a pretty challenging circumstance to navigate when it comes to the cap. They are kind of hands tied for the foreseeable future because I don't know how they keep doing it. They just keep manipulating the cap, pushing money down the road. But a big part of that issue, right, is Alvin Kamara.
Yeah.
I don't know that they trust him to stay healthy, or I don't know if they trust Kendre Miller to stay healthy, but if they do, there could be a pathway for some work there.
Yeah, Alvin Kamara wanted a new deal after or before the season started. The Saints obviously didn't give it to him. I can't imagine that they would sign him to a long-term deal this offseason. So that does open the door to Kendre Miller playing more. And Kate, I want to talk about the Saints kind of big picture. They are now 2-5. They lost their last 5 games since winning the Super Bowl against the Cowboys in week 2. I don't know if you saw this, but the Saints held a big parade outside the Cowboy Stadium after they beat them in week 2. I think they thought they won the Super Bowl. It's a little karma for you. Anyways, 2-5. They are clearly falling behind in the NFC South. I wonder if at some point the Saints are going to start turning their attention towards the future, right? So what's the point in Alvin Kamara racking up 25 touches a game? I mean, he didn't get that this week, but I got to assume like they're going to want to see Kendre Miller play some more. Maybe he is somebody in the second half of this season could be a useful fantasy football running back.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And again, kind of just as they try to examine, like, if we give Kendre Miller more work, can he stay healthy? What does this offense look like when we take a little bit off the plate of Alvin Kamara, who's been kind of the crux of this team for how many years now? Like, I think it's probably time they start looking toward the future. And Kendre Miller, a talented running back who, guess what, on a rookie deal is going to help you a little bit. If you can lean on some of these rookies in their rookie contracts, that's going to help alleviate that, some of those cap concerns that you've built up yourself. Like, I like Kendre Miller, and I think he showed me everything that I probably wanted to see from him on Thursday Night Football.
I also wanted to talk about Spencer Rattler a little bit. Now, he started the last 2 games, just not very good in this game. 25 of 35, 172 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. But he really had an interception, but they called it a fumble that was caught in the air. I don't know how they got that distinction. It's not that I've given up on Spencer Rattler, but I got to believe once Derek Carr's healthy, like, they're going to put him back in the lineup, right? Like, to me, there's no chance that they're just going to roll with Spencer Rattler this year, because as much as maybe we don't love Derek Carr, he's at least a functional NFL quarterback that can spread the ball around. We're just not seeing that from Rattler.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that we are going to see Derek Carr. Now, do they rush him back? I don't know, because they don't really have much incentive to, right? Like, this season feels like a total loss, which is crazy considering how hot they looked to start out the year. And I mean, it feels over.
Yeah. They scored 42 points against the Cowboys, could have scored 80 if they wanted to. And now they're struggling to get to 10. So this is fun, Kate. Football's fun. I mean, I think Chris Olave will likely be back for their next week game. He had a concussion, just too quick of a turnaround from Sunday to Thursday. But again, if you've got Chris Olave, or maybe you're hopeful that like Jawan Johnson can be an effective player or effective tight end, you want Derek Carr back on the field.
Yeah.
That's all we have to say about the Saints team right now. It's pretty bleak. It's rough out there, Kate. You don't want to talk about Bub Means?
No, I think I'm good.
All right, let's get to what you guys really want to talk about. Promotion commotion, players that we are promoting from our bench or maybe even our waiver wire to our starting lineups in week 7. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You're going to get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And this is a great week to start betting on FanDuel. We've got some awesome Sunday games, including Vikings Lions in the early slot, Packers and Texans. We also got Seahawks Falcons, which I think is really fun. And then in that 4:25 Eastern window, we get the Super Bowl rematch between the Chiefs and the 49ers. Right now, the 49ers are only 1.5 point favorites at home. I find that interesting. So go make a bet. Go make a little money line parlay. Enjoy the games on Sunday, and then you're going to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed on FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go check out the new Locked On NFL show. 2 shows every single day. 1 in the morning with Tyler Rowland, 1 in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Go download that podcast wherever you get your podcast. All right, Kate, promotion commotion time. Our favorite segment of the week, players that we are promoting from our benches, maybe even the waiver wire into our starting lineups in week 7. Who do you got?
This might be like low-hanging fruit at this point, but we've got to talk about Demario Douglas, who is coming on as of late, Mr. Pop Douglas, and gets a matchup with, rookie quarterback Drake May under center, who's, had some ups and downs, but did throw 3 touchdowns last week. Like he was capable of slinging it. And now they've got a matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like it feels like a bye week defense for them. Got to go find a way to get him into your lineups this week.
All right, I've got a tight end because right now the tight end position is really rough, and we've got some bye weeks. So Jake Ferguson is on a bye. We've got some injuries. I'm looking at Will Dissly for the Los Angeles Chargers. Hayden Hurst has been dealing with a groin injury, did not play last week, has not practiced yet. Will Dissly is not a great athlete or anything like that, but on an offense that likes to throw the ball to the tight end, I think it's pretty good. He's had at least 3 targets in 4 consecutive games. They're playing Arizona, who really struggles against tight ends. I like Will Dissly if you really need a deep dive tight end in week 7.
I like that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to maybe chase a little bit of points here, but I think you can start Romeo Doubs here in this spot up against the Texans. I know that maybe last week was a little bit of a product of Dontavian Wicks being injured. He's out again this week. I don't know if that's been made official, but he was labeled week to week. But I think there could be some continued target share for him to be had. He's not going to be the top focal point of, Jalen Petrie. This is not going to be a game where I think they really look to zero in on Romeo Doubs. I think you can line him up again and see what he's capable of.
Okay. I like that one. My last one here is my guy, Greg Dortch. Last week, 3 for 36 against the Packers on 5 targets. Again, nothing spectacular. But this week, going up against the Chargers, Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably not going to play as he deals with a concussion, right? So I think the Cardinals are going to have to throw the ball to win this game. Michael Wilson will obviously get some targets. They'll probably funnel more through Trey McBride. But I wouldn't be surprised, Kate, if this is one of the weeks where we see Greg Dortch get 8 targets like we saw earlier in the season, and 6 for 67, something like that. If you just need a flex play on an offense that you think is going to throw the ball a lot, I like Greg Dortch as a deep what the heck flex.
Another deep what the heck flex. Let's talk about Noah Brown, wide receiver
Yes.
for the Washington Commanders. Has a nice opportunity here and has been kind of involved at least 3 targets in each of his 4 games this season. Coming off a nice showing, 8 targets, 4 receptions, 58 receiving yards. Still seeking his first score of the year, but I think there's a nice spot here up against the Ravens defense, right? You can't run on them. So teams have been forced to pass. And I don't think that this is going to be a situation where they look to get the run game going with an injured Brian Thomas Jr. They are going to put the ball in Jaden Daniels' hands. I think this is probably a week where he might, hit a new career high in pass attempts just based on game script. There should be plenty of scoring, and especially if you're in a full PPR format, I think he could see enough volume just to give you like a solid 10 points.
I've got one last one, but I'm going to have you tell me which one it should be. So the Jets this week are going to be without their number 2, number 3, and number 4 cornerbacks against the Steelers. Michael Carter, the slot corner's out. DJ Reed, their awesome corner, got hurt last week against the Bills. Their starting safety, Chuck Clark, is out for this week. So if you had to pick between Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson, that now that we know Russell Wilson's going to be the starter, who would you rather start this week?
I'm going with Calvin Austin,
That was my gut. Yeah.
We've got a speed merchant, can get open down the field just based on his quickness. And we know that some of these like timed throws down the field, the deep passing game, that's what Russell Wilson can do. I think Calvin Austin has been one of these guys that doesn't get a ton of opportunities, but when he does get the ball in his hands, I think generally he does pretty well with it. So I'd prefer to take a shot on that, counting on that speed and that quickness to maybe break one off, get a deep ball, see what happens.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Go check out the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on YouTube as well. Follow Kate on Twitter at Kate Modjuk. I'm at Marcus _Mosier. Enjoy week 7, and we'll see you right back here on Monday.